an amazing week last week with the wonders of Easter, and I'm sure all of you have caught up with the news that last week, while we had moved into Easter Monday, that the Pope passed away, and some of you may have even spent some time last night watching the service online. My internet decided that we didn't need to watch the entire thing, and I couldn't, it just kept pausing and going back to certain parts. But it always amazes me the liturgy that they have in some of what happens, and some of it, I'm going to use some words that might unsettle a few people, but some of it just seems like a bit of pomp and ceremony. But I'm sure that if you were there in the moment, the impact of that, what I call pomp and ceremony, because I'm so far away from it, allows you the space just to be. And we often in our world don't stop and just be with God. I'm sure that those that were there would have been impacted, and there were so many across the world that, not even Christian, but wanted to be there for that moment. And I know God would have used every little seed that he has planted in those people through that. So we are so grateful for that. We also had on Friday Anzac Day, which was an opportunity for us to remember all of those throughout history who have given their lives for people, and to think about the impact of all that. And I think, I know especially my son's generation are very much aware of how much is going on in the world in terms of that kind of thing at the moment, and very aware of the challenges that the world is facing at this time, and watching with the news quite a lot. And of course that gives plenty of opportunity for conversation with them about where their faith is. And so we are thinking of all of those people who lost family during the wars, and those who have still people available out there. And I watched an Anzac ceremony in Ukraine. So New Zealand and Australians that are in the Ukraine were asked actually by the mayor of Kiev to have a ceremony in the city, and so they did that and remembered all of those that have given their lives in that war as well. But during the week, it got to me, and there are times I think when all of us perhaps have this thought, and it might kind of even connect a little bit as you hear the message to what was being said this morning. But I don't know how many of you have, but I definitely have had this thought: I am not worthy. It's a message that is shared from the world over and over again. It's not explicitly stated most of the time. It's a message that comes through all of the media, through the advertising, through the books that we read, through the movies that we watch. I am not worthy. I'm not pretty enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not rich enough. And then there are all the messages that tell me how I can overcome those things. Buy this, wear that, go and get your nails done, go and have a suntan, have this car, have that TV. In fact, everyone we speak to has an idea how we can make people or things better. But Jesus offers us an alternative. He offers us the good news of love and acceptance just for who we are, just for who he created us to be. A different kind of good news message to the world. The challenge we have, though, is that we are brought up in a world that is influenced by culture, by history, by education, by our personal experiences. And these all come together uniquely in each one of us to create our own little definition of what it means to be successful and to be worthy. And so I thought about, what does the population in New Zealand perhaps define success and worthiness as? What would it look like if I was to kind of go out there and ask 1,000 people, what does success and worthiness look like to you? And as I was thinking about all that, I came across one definition, and I just want you to listen to the definition and to think about your own situation, where you're at, and where your lives at, and whether or not this definition might even partially describe how you might define success. So it says, a successful person in today's New Zealand context is independent, educated, and influential. They've likely achieved career milestones, financial stability, and personal goals. But more than that, they are also expected to be socially conscious, supporting inclusivity, upholding te tiriti o waitangi, caring for the environment, and engaging in causes that promote equity and well-being. They are admired not just for what they have, but for how they contribute to the betterment of society, all while living with authenticity and cultural humility. According to this definition, would you be considered successful? See, these are the messages that we receive from our media, from tradition. They paint a picture of success based on appearance, on achievement, and on approval. But Jesus' definition offers a radically different view. He redefines success by calling us to love God and to love others and to live out of our identity in Him. Cultural success is often measured by achievement, the titles that we have. Reverend Doctor, by the qualifications we've achieved, by the promotions perhaps, or by image, or by influence. Our appearance and our lifestyle, whatever social media we've managed to curate, and being seen and being known and being followed. I was watching The Chase this week. It's one of the shows that I quite enjoy just for a little bit of downtime and trivia. And there was a question on there that demonstrated, I think, just how much this has influenced our society. One of the questions that was there asked, what was the number one job that young people in the UK said that they aspired to? And this was in 2019. There were 3 choices: astronaut, teacher, or social media influencer. Anybody want to guess what they chose? The third one, yeah. It was interesting that the contestants on the show, who were a little bit older, all spoke about how sad they thought it was that our young people, that their young people in their country felt like being a social media influencer was the job to have. But that's exactly what our culture has created. A worldview that's enforced by it's important to be seen. It's important for other people to know what you're doing and to want to do it too. It's important that you share all of your life for others to see, but only the good bits. Interestingly, for us, Jesus is kind of the same. As a disciple of Jesus, we are called to follow him, to look at his life and to try and imitate the things and the ways that he did things. When I read the definition of what it meant to be successful or worthy in New Zealand, I realised that a lot of that definition also is found in the church. we think about the second part of it. Admired not just for what they have, but how they have contributed to the betterment of society while living with authenticity and cultural humility. So I wanted to look at what it might mean, or what a definition of the kingdom's success was. Not measured by status, not measured by possessions or popularity or faithfulness. Beg your pardon, it is measured by faithfulness. One who walks humbly in relation to Jesus, obeying his word and reflecting his love daily. Seeking his kingdom first, Matthew 6. Loving God wholeheartedly and loving his neighbours as themselves, from Matthew 22. A definition that sees us as stewards of time, of talents and of resources for God's purposes, not for our gain. Where impact is quiet, unseen by the world, but celebrated in heaven. Lives transformed by Christ and living for his glory in relationship with him and with others. Jesus' teachings and actions point towards a definition that is rooted in spiritual growth, humility, faithfulness, service to others, in community, and in aligning our lives with his will. Romans 12 verse 2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." The upside down kingdom of God, where success is not defined by the things we accumulate, the achievements in academia or sports, the influence we have or our appearance. It's evidenced by inward surrender and outward love. Jesus defines success, and he redefined it by the way he loved and the way he restored. I think about, as we were talking about last week, the meals that Jesus had after his resurrection. During that week, that Holy Week, when Jesus had been arrested, his disciples abandoned him. Peter denied him 3 times. But instead of lecturing them, he meets them with grace and with meals. In the passage from Luke that is often referred to as the walk to Emmaus, 2 of his disciples, discouraged and walking away, share a journey with Jesus. And as he walks with them, he opens up the scriptures to them to be able to see him in them. And when they arrive at their destination, they encourage him and say, "Don't continue on, stay with us, eat with us." And it's in the moment of breaking the bread that they recognize him. He met them in their confusion, and he revealed himself to them in fellowship. And what did they do? They ran back to be with the community, to share what they had revealed to them. And then the disciples themselves, many of them in the upper room, terrified. And Jesus appears to them, and they think he's a ghost. And he says to them, "Peace be with you." And then he says, "See, I'm real, touch me." Would a ghost have flesh and bones like I do? He reconnects with them. And then he eats with them. He restores peace where there was fear. And then in John 21, verses 9 to 13, he has breakfast on the shore with them. Some of the disciples have gone fishing, and actually they didn't catch any fish that night. And when they saw him on the shore, he calls out to them and says, "Put your net down on the other side." And when they've caught more fish than they needed, Peter recognized Jesus on the shore, and he leaps out of the boat and rushes over. And when he gets there, he finds that Jesus already has a fire going with fish and bread. And then the disciples and Jesus have breakfast together on the beach. We remember that Peter had denied Jesus 3 times by this stage, but Jesus doesn't condemn. He eats with him, and then he restores him gently. "Do you love me? Feed my sheep." This shows something radically different to what the world offers. Jesus doesn't measure us by our failures or our success. He doesn't worry about what we look like or how much we have. But it's our relationship with him that matters. And in each of those encounters with people, he said, not through words, but through his actions, "You still belong. I still choose you. You are worthy of my love." He reveals their worth through grace. We remember that it comes not from what we do or have done, but what he did and what he does. If we think of Ephesians chapter 2, where it says, "It is by grace you have been saved, not by works, so that no one can boast." We don't earn our place at the table. Jesus invites us. We don't have to be perfect, because Jesus makes us new. We don't have to strive to be worthy. We are worthy, and we can receive it. At the end of one of the times that he had with his disciples, Jesus told them to wait until they had received power from on high. And we know that Jesus told the disciples that those who believe in him will do the works that he was doing, and even greater things. When we live from Jesus' definition of success, from our kingdom identity, everything changes. We don't have to strive. We can rest. We can read the scriptures. We can pray, and we can sit with him. We can be with Jesus as he is with us and in us. We can find the ways in our lives that help us to be aware of his presence in every moment and every day. Kevin spoke about the fact that God loved us first. And I think about my own life and those moments where I realized and recognized love just because it was there. Those moments of sitting at the beach, looking out of the water. Sometimes the sun was sparkling, sometimes it's raining. but just enjoying creation, or the sound of a tui, or a fantail. For those of us who are parents, that moment when you first looked on your newborn baby, the overwhelming sense of love you had for them. For me, there were moments when I was teaching on a school camp and I would just sit at a picnic table and watch the children around, and often it was a camp at the end of the year, and just, I guess, noticing and realizing how much they had grown and changed, and how much promise and potential they had for the rest of their lives. Or maybe a graduation ceremony. Your wedding, if you're married. The way you notice your spouse sometimes might be doing the dishes in the kitchen and you just have that overwhelming sense of gratefulness that they are there in your life. Or a grandchild. Those moments when God's perfection breaks in through the noise of the world. And we think about how we can help the world, serve the world, love the world. Not out of a sense of obligation to any organisation or to any individual, but because we recognise the God who created the universe. Because we know how much He loves us. And we give ourselves to love the world that He created. Helping our neighbour. Helping each other to know Jesus, to be with Him, to know Him more, to become like Him, and to do as He did, and to do even greater things, because we are His. The most successful people in God's eyes are often the most hidden, the ones that are walking humbly, loving deeply, and serving faithfully. So whose definition is defining our worth? Jesus' way, His offer, a life where we're not measured by what we do, but by who we belong to. And He's calling us to come and eat, to be restored, and to live from love. To live from love, not for it. And Jesus asks us the question, will we receive it? Matthew 22, verses 36 to 40, we're reminded, Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbour as yourself, because all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. The good news, the gospel, is the opposite of the message the world tries to give those around us. The gospel says, I am worthy. Not because of who I am or what I do, but because I am a child of God, a child of the Creator of the universe, and He is calling me into relationship with Him. We know that he knows everything about us already and he still loves us, all our imperfections, all our doubts, all our worries, all the things we think we've done wrong. Jesus went to the cross in the greatest display of love that the world has ever seen. And he promised us that we are not alone on this journey. So we spend quality time with him. We listen to what he has to say. We allow his words to settle in our minds and our hearts. And we think about the things that the disciples and the apostles learned and said. And today I want to make Philippians 3:7-11 the things that we are thinking about. Paul said, "Whatever were gains to me, I now consider loss for the sake of Christ. What is more, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage, that I may gain Christ and be found in him, not having a righteousness of my own that comes from the law, but that which is through faith in Christ, the righteousness that comes from God on the basis of faith. I want to know Christ, yes, to know the power of his resurrection and participation in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, and so somehow attaining to resurrection from the dead." It was his personal experience that he shared with those around him, that he encouraged others around him to have as well, so that each person was connected to Christ. So we think about today, is there an area that he is wanting us to make changes in?